Alright, we've got a handful of packages. But this one's going to be a little funny because there's something non-anime in it that normally y'all wouldn't be bothered with. But you know what? I didn't need it that quick, so we're just opening it up. You see, well, there is some anime in here. There's also pineapple tidbits. Yeah, very important, right? Well, anyways, that means y'all got to see a little bit of my grocery shopping. But we'll just get these out of here. And then get the other two packages in here. Let's see. There we go. Now let's turn these up right. And then last but not least, this Crunchyroll order. And I think we'll begin with the Crunchyroll one. I'm fairly certain this is new season of Blue Exorcist? I know Exorcist? Yeah, Blue Exorcist. I don't know that I know the name too well. Because the point is, let's actually do this. Can I? No, this. I guess I can sort of read this here. Sorry, but this text is surprisingly small. I can't even really read it through. Episodes 1 through 12, English and Japanese audio. So there's a dub on here. But I'm not seeing anything about, let me see if I can read specifically what it says. This is a complete Blu-ray set of, Shimane Illuminati Saga. Okay. Let me do this. Okay. I guess I'm reading it okay. I do see a little bit of hair just kind of being weird. Special gift. Okay. It's interesting because this is almost like CD shaped, but I'm pretty sure this is one of the special things. There's something very familiar about her. Yeah, this is one of these card things. These are really nice for displaying. I'll try to remember to show them next week, the handful of ones that I do have, that I have up for show. You know, I do the room tour next week. Let's turn this upside down. Oh, is this another one? Yeah. Special gift 1, special gift 2. Okay, that makes sense. Just going to be really careful about this. Wait, 2 of them? But they're eating something different. Well, as a person that respects how grounded people eating stuff makes a lot of shows, that's kind of respectable. Here's a special book for it. Alright, and then last but not least, the actual Blu-ray contents themselves. But it's been so long, let's see. That's disc 1, that's disc 2, and wow, that contrast makes it really hard, but I do see the disc 3. Okay. Next we have The Kingdom of Ruin. I never did quite finish this. Same underneath the slipcover. And I had things where it's like, I think as a premise, there was a lot of promise, but something about the execution left me frustrated and not satisfied. Let's see, a region A, B there. Having trouble seeing if that says audio or not. As in, is it dubbed? English and Japanese? It's dubbed English. This quill summons vengeance. Yeah. But the show I guess maybe part of it was just that it felt like the show maybe got in its own way a little bit. And it only really became a problem as it was getting closer to the end, because it's like, okay, actions are happening that I don't care as much about. You know, I was thinking I would move this one last because this is Frieren, and, you know, this is Frieren Beyond Journey's End Part 1. Let's see exactly what that means. First of all, regions A and B, so that's importable. Audio, I see English and Japanese with English subtitles as an option. Time forgets she carries forward. That's actually kind of a touching way to put it. I kind of like this slipcover because this is a better imagery for the show as a whole, but this is actually very pretty. Oh, duh, I was looking at the back and it wasn't just whether it was dubbed. I completely forgot. I also wanted to see how many episodes do we have. 16 episodes. And does that math correctly? I think there was something like 28 episodes. Oh. Carter Freeman. Actually, oh, this is Blu-ray and DVD. Oh, and that disc fell out. I really want to see the artwork for this one. Because if there's one thing this show did really well, among many of the other things, Grow Your Party, Part 2, joining soon on Blu-ray DVD. I mean, look at them. They're all very neat. Like, Fern's outfit's probably the most simple, but there's something about it that's just distinctly Fern. And Frieren, of course, she just has a spectacular design. I don't think she ever needs to change her clothes, but she even has winter clothing. I don't know. It's all good stuff. The show just had so many good things about it. Cool. Man, I just appreciate the show so much. Yeah, I was thinking about, you know, I'm here on break. What are these? I could probably see if my hair wasn't in the way. I see a Blu-ray there. A Blu-ray there. That's a Blu-ray 2, all up to episode 16. Oh, interesting. 3 DVD discs. DVD 2. And DVD 3. Interesting. But yeah. And I realized I just am so reluctant to watch the second season of Invincible because Season 1 was kind of an accident as far as I'm concerned because of the bad writing. Anyways, I'll talk about that later. Let's go through what I actually have here. I know somebody was curious how I was going to be getting the Digimon movies on Blu-ray, and yeah, here they are. Movie Collection 1. Was there more than 3 movies? I guess I don't know. And I'm pretty sure I didn't have this on Blu-ray already, so here we are. You know, I figured might as well. You know, I'm not a big Digimon fan myself. I just didn't grow up on it. But I know it's a pretty beloved series. Let's see what the back tells us. I see a region A only. This is Discotheque Eastern Star. Okay. I see. Huh. English, Japanese, and English DTS Master Audio 5.1. So for the movie, that would probably be the first one. And my biggest worry here is if I already got these Digimon movies, Collection 1, movies 1 through 3. If I already got these on Blu-ray, then maybe this is a bit of a duplicate. But there's a possibility I didn't, and I just... I mean, this presentation is fine for getting 3 movies in one thing. But I don't know, it feels like it should be separate things. Then last but not least, Vermeil in Gold. This is a steelbook thing. I don't even remember if I have this. If I do, it's probably behind me in the pile of things that are candidates of stuff to watch that I just don't get around to watch. But I think I didn't care because this is a steelbook and I've been collecting those like a collector. Region A. I see English and Japanese. So, you know, there's SDH. I'm blanking on what that might mean. Anyways, the point is I have a steelbook version of this. And it's been a little on the radar. But not priority to actually watch. Because I just don't have energy. Interesting. Looks like some rather spicy pictures in there. Anyways, I don't see much reason to dig too much deeper because it doesn't look like there's much more image behind it, which is kind of how I prefer it. You know, if you have to go digging to look at the decorations for your steelbook, and then it's maybe not quite a steelbook presentation, so this is pretty good. Okay. Yeah. Well, here's this week's physical anime collection update. Okay, and I guess if I'm going to finish that thought I was talking about in the unwrapping stuff, I was just saying how Invincible Season 1, I think it would be pretty easy to argue that it was badly written, but the bad writing accidentally made it good. In fact, I think I've said this before, where Invincible is a show. If you ask what the show is about, it's about, okay, our main character is the son of pretty much the Superman of their world, Omni-Man, right? Omni means everything multifaceted, something like that. And the show as a storytelling structure is basically about, okay, well, he's a teenager of that, so, you know, what gets born from that? Well, he gets his superpowers around the time he's getting his first relationship. It's really about how does he balance being a high school teenage boy with becoming a superhero, right? And the thing that really makes it work as a season 1 is both of those end up being disastrous. So, like, you can think of these two story elements and they just don't work. And where does the first season end with? It ends with, you know, our main character kind of going back to the root and having an interaction with his dad that's kind of like, it kind of brings it back to where the first episode began, even though it didn't intend to. And part of the problem with that, of course, there's also the problem where the main character takes his abusive girlfriend back, but she's just badly written, and she's kind of the center focal point of his normal teenage life stuff. A lot of people have a bunch of bad stuff. She was a bad person even before the big episode that made most people hate her. I think the problem is a lot of people weren't picking up that the show thought, oh yes, she has these flaws. Her flaws are she's too perfect. And it's just like, okay, they're forcing this on us, and the writers don't know what they're fucking doing. And on the other side of it, that stuff I think worked perfectly fine. He's trying to be a superhero, but you know, there's kind of grim reality the show's throwing it in our face. And the problem is, both of those failing as spectacularly as they did, I think the superhero side kind of sort of was, and that's fine. The teenage part, I think that one only just got disastrously bad because it was unintentionally so. Which drives a lot of the audience back to, okay, well, where's the core of all that stuff? And that's where the first season happened to leave off. And I guess my chances of watching the second season are definitely higher because I guess they neutered her character. They completely changed her, and it's like, it's more than she as a character deserves just because of how badly she was written, but I don't know. We'll have to see what I actually do this next week because most of these shows have ended. But, you know, Frieren episodes 4 through 6 are something I watched with my Friday friend, and like I said, Frieren is just so much better written, and a good contrast with this. Let's talk about a different aspect of Invincible that I think is actually another example of the bad writing, but also not necessarily a bad part of Invincible. I think the Monster Girl robot side story is bad writing, but also good writing. And I'd say the real problem is, you know, it's a show called Invincible, and like I said, it's about those twin elements and how they interplay with each other, and that side arc feels like it's its own thing. Like, it's like, Jesus Christ, show. I mean, maybe that's interesting. Maybe you could have made a side story about that, but I feel like you're wasting my time by taking me away from the story that I'm here to watch and having me watch another story, which sometimes I feel like Frieren kind of did a little bit. Some of it was important. So, for example, you know, they did have a flashback where it's like, okay, now we need to understand why when these two characters interact, things are going to go a certain direction. And I'm thinking of a certain late episode, half episode spent on that. Very late episode. But, usually that's the exception. Like, okay, yes, it's good to kind of build your story and build your interest in the story. And we definitely need to know how this situation is going to get handled, and that kind of gives us history on two characters. That's like, okay, now I see why that's not going to be a problem. And it's supposedly kind of important because we have to know how that's going to happen, so we make sure our main characters who are taking care of the main problem don't find themselves sandwiched in an impossible situation and everybody dies because they all failed, or something like that. But that's not too bad. But I don't think the Monster Girl robot thing worked. I don't think that really attached itself to any of the main stuff too strongly. I also have, I'm not sure I'd call this a problem, but I find it hilarious that they basically created a character, Monster Girl, with an interesting disability, which is, you know, something that can only exist in fiction. But I think there's actually people in real life that have the same problem. People who look way younger than they actually are, and in Monster Girl's case, you know, it's because she's literally being aged backwards every time she transforms. And so she has this problem where she's an adult in a preteen body, essentially. It's like, yeah, I can understand why that would be a problem on the dating scene. But their solution is to basically have another character do that. And I'm like, okay, if we consider what she's going through a bit of a disability, the show's response is to have an ableist solution. That's like, only somebody with the same disability can have things. And it's painful to think about. But, you know, I think it's a complicated enough thing that any approach they took is going to be painful if you think. And that's why it's a fictitious thing. But the reality is, yeah, it's a fun thing. But I think in a lot of ways you can see why, okay, maybe there's some parts of that aren't exactly thought out, but it's still touching, but it is still a distraction, so that's bad writing. And when you get back to Frieren, episodes 4 through 6, so episode 4, no, I guess episode 4, 5, and 6 just kind of tie into each other. They kind of start setting the forward destination for the show so that it's not like, okay, the first 3 episodes, you kind of get this boot up kind of thing to the show, which is like, okay, yeah, that's why these are going to be touching stories, but maybe their connection is just Frieren and not like a destination, whereas episodes 4 through 6 give us our destination, and of course they introduce us to Stark, and I'm not sure if that's how his name was pronounced in Japanese with subtitles. I pronounced it Stark, but the Stark pronunciation is what's happening in the English dub, and I guess I'm doing that. And the English dub's okay, I guess. I still prefer Japanese with English subtitles, but I don't know that it's necessarily unwatchable, at least by somebody that's watching it for the first time. And yeah, I've said this before, but oh, and I think all their names are supposed to be German. That's why it's Stark, and I think that's like a German pronunciation of the spelling S-T-A-R-K. But I digress. Anyways, the point is, especially episodes 5 and 6, they're really a story about him, but it's very well written, okay, not only do they have a really huge budget for episode 6, but his story is also about Frieren. And with a lot of the Fern stuff, you know, that can make sense in terms of, like, okay, since Fern is Frieren's disciple, you know, a lot of things you see relating to Fern also gives us information about Frieren in some ways. And that's just a very surface level, and that usually goes beyond that. But in the case of Stark, you know, he kind of has this thing he has to get over, and it's additional information Frieren brings. So she kind of engages their meeting with him. She gives him information that he didn't know about his relationship with his master that allows him to move forward, and in his moment of glory, she's the one that pretty much gets to validate him and say, see, I knew you could do it, for all intents and purposes. So it's like, you know, it's just really well written, really good. I highly appreciate it. I certainly hope I get to show it to my family or something over Christmas. Maybe just an episode or two, I'm not sure. I'll have to play that one by ear. But, good show. Let me see. I'll Become Villainous. That will go down in history, episode 12. For a while there, I was wondering if it was actually coming to an end, but now I remember it had a stinger at the very end. It's like, okay. First of all, if that's a season finale, then fuck you, because, you know, we definitely want to see more than that. But I feel like there needs to be an episode 13. Now I forget if I checked or not, because for a lot of the stuff I have to check. That was episode 12, and some of these shows are ending at episode 12. But yeah. Anyways, I'm trying to remember what else might have happened in there. I guess the confrontation that I was waiting to see happened, and it wasn't as awesome as I would have guessed it would be, I guess, for lack of better words. But yeah, hopefully we get another episode. I guess if we do, then it's going to be right as the next season stuff is also beginning. Do Over Damsel, episode 11. I think an interaction in there that I've been hoping for happened, and I thought it was quite entertaining. I think there's still, I forget what happened at the very, very, very end. I think maybe it was that, but I think it's a good setup for whatever's about to happen in the next episode. So the next episode can probably end this, and it will probably end decently, I'm hoping. So, decent penultimate episode, I suppose. Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? Season 5, episode 11. Yada yada yada, fuck the Freya Familia. It feels like it's flowing a little fast, because I think the next episode has to end things, but I guess that's fine, because the next episode being the last episode that I think is on there, we do need a conclusion to this stuff, and we don't need to see too much more Freya Familia dragging on their fucking bullshit. We want to see some just desserts.
And maybe along the lines, because they've set it up, we'll also see some heroicness from Belle, because that's always great when that happens. So I guess we'll just have to see how it ends. Goodbye Dragon Life, episode 12. Just an okay ending. Kind of goes back to, okay, yes, this is what we were setting up near the beginning, and putting on additional stuff, wrapping some stuff up, kind of moving forward into the future, I guess. And mostly okay. My big problem with the show is it had a great fundamental premise and great characters, but something about it, it just felt like maybe it wasn't sure what it wanted to be, maybe. Like, I think the show had the potential to either be a, an overpowered main character, fantasy world thing, but it also had this ability to be a kind of appreciation of life sort of show. And while there's elements in the ending that kind of lean towards that appreciation of life sort of stuff, it's also... I guess it just didn't feel like that was the focus. Like, if... I think I've probably compared it to Farming Life in Another World. That one, you just kind of watch episode by episode, and while you know that our main character is OP, it mostly plays it for laughs and giggles, and one of the things that makes it really fun is just kind of this building up of everyday life sort of stuff that's just really pleasant about it. And I didn't feel like Goodbye Dragon Life had that, but I did feel like it kind of wanted to be that. Oh well. I do believe that one's over. If more came out, I might try watching it. Dandadan, I think we also got the end of this season, and what a shitty final episode. As in, like, I think it ended with some interesting stuff happening, but the problem is, why the fuck are we getting a 6-month break when that's the last thing that just happened? You know, that's interesting stuff. I think we have to wait until July for the next episode. That's when Dandadan Season 2 comes out, I guess. But it's not really a season or core finale that happened. It just is sort of a stopped in the middle of things. And I felt like it was pretty egregious in that regard. I almost would have preferred it stopping at episode 11 and then only having this episode in July or June or whatever. But it was fun. I can see why some people would really, really like it. It's not me, and part of the problem there is just that I'm not sure I like some of the characters, and part of me just doesn't have the energy to care too much about the romance part of it and the awkwardness. It's like, it's interesting because Arifureta's in there, and I've been appreciative of it's not been doing romance, it's been doing relationship, and just like, okay, the relationship with Shia has been a central theme throughout season 3 and touchingly done. And maybe it's just the awkwardness that I don't like or don't empathize with. Empathize isn't quite the right word, because I think the problem is I actually empathize with it too much. And so maybe it's more like I don't feel like I can put the energy in. I don't know. It's all a bunch of stuff. But I digress. And the main complaint is that, oh, they're going to make us wait 6 months for the next episode. Sword Art Online Gun Gale Online Season 2 Episode 12. I think that was an interesting twist that they had at this for the stuff. I don't know that it thematically felt anything other than, I guess there's episodes for this. So, it's okay. Dragon Ball Daima Episode 11. Okay, I did not like the fact that they decided to make... So they made Majin Ku, and now they're making Majin Du, and I'm like... I'm hoping that they're not, like, making them this Buu level threat, which I'm pretty sure they're not, but I appreciated the fact that Ku was not. And Du is interesting, but I don't like the design of Du because it's reminiscent of Fat Buu, but Fat Buu wasn't Fat Buu because Buu was Buu. Fat Buu was Fat Buu because Buu absorbed people that kind of transformed him into that personality. Like, that was one of the interesting things about the Buu Saga. And one of the things I appreciated about before I watched this episode was I've rewatched some of the Kid Buu part of the Buu Saga, and I'm like, Oh yeah, he was fucking unhinged, man. Oh yeah, that was actually fun. You know, I do appreciate the fact that the pacing is much better for Daima, but it's like the way they approached Kid Boo's eyes, especially, were reflected in dew, and I'm like, well, that's at least nice, but I'm worried the show is focusing on that too much. One of the things I appreciate about it is it does seem to be setting itself up such that each of the 3 Dragon Balls is acquired by a different person. Now, Goku and Vegeta together are one group, but we want to watch fucking Vegeta. I mean, Goku's great. You see him do that little Goku stance and you're like, oh yeah, something fun's about to happen, man. But still the case, we want our Vegeta. Vegeta's just so fun as well. And they're kind of doing that, but I feel like the Kudu stuff is slowing that down a little bit. But I guess we'll see with the next episode if it's fine, if it sets it up. Probably it'll be the episodes after that where we find out, okay, now instead of this thing, which it's not exactly bland fighting the 3 Tamagamis, but this means that, okay, now we're going to see Goku fight Tamagami number 1, or Piccolo fight Tamagami number 1. It does feel like it is breaking apart some potential formula there. And I do like how Glorio kind of is sweating a little bit. Because like, oh jeez, these kids are galaxy level threats. Or something like that. I mean, it's not... There's something there where he's like, oh my god, I've gotten myself into something that's more than I expected. I don't know how to explain more without spoiling too much, but overall, it's okay episode, I guess. Let me see. And the list is a lot shorter because a lot of things finished. Next up is Demon Lord 2099, episode 11. Which does seem to be setting itself up to a season finale of some sort. And I guess the stuff that they kind of had happen at the very end of the previous episode, as hilariously done as that was, things were a lot more wholesome, noteworthy. Some of the things we kind of expected, some of the things I don't think we expected. I have a lot of high hopes that for episode 12, they actually have a good finale, not only to this story arc, but to this season. Overall, it could actually turn out to be quite touching. If there's any problem I have with it, it's that, you know, I've given the show a lot of compliments for successfully being this mix of fantasy and cyberpunk. Like, I feel like it plays with those too much, and I think those elements are still in play here. I just don't know that's actually playing around with the cyberpunk as strongly as, well, here's the fantasy element of it that we established it's important for the story. And I don't think there's any surprise there. But I guess it's a weakness of this episode. Reincarnated Aristocrat, Season 2, Episode 24. This was the final episode of the season, I think. It conducted itself as if it was a final season, but not a final story. I was trying to think if they gave us a stinger at the end, but I don't know that Season 1 did either. I was almost thinking it did, but I was confusing that with a different show. But for what happened this one, I think they wrapped up some of the stuff very nicely. It was sentimental. The things that they targeted, that they wrapped up, that what they set up in the previous episode, the follow-up to that was actually pretty great and very satisfying and touching. Likewise, that major season finale event happened, and that was actually pretty touching. I think the way it was all executed. And they've left us with, if Season 3 comes out, hopefully there'll be a Season 3, then maybe it'll be interesting to see where it goes from there. So, I'd say a pretty decent ending to Season 2. Spirit Chronicles, Season 2, Episode 12. Now, this was the one I was thinking of before, because it wrapped up that. Some... I'd say for the most part, it was kind of just a very, I guess that's wrapping things up. I guess that's wrapping things up. I guess that's wrapping things up. Which was unfortunate because when the way season 1 ended, was very okay. That is something resolved, and they gave us a stinger. I'm like, well, it looks like season 2 isn't going to give us that. Oh, they gave us a little bit of stinger at the very, very, very end just to entice us into season 3, which I think is fine. And I would watch season 3 if it came out. If it was coming out today, I would watch it, I guess. But, you know, it's probably not. Probably we have to wait a year or 2 or something. But, fine. Fine ending, I guess. And then, last but not least, was Arifureta from Commonplace to World's Strongest, Season 3, Episode 10, which, as I mentioned, I guess I was talking about the third season in general. I thought it was a fine Episode 10. I didn't think too much about it, but I did look at how many episodes it's supposed to be, because like if it's 12, then I guess it's hard to tell what to think about where we are, but it sounds like it's 16 episodes, which suggests to me that it's actually planning to do something more, because episode 10 here feels like it's giving our characters actually enough room to potentially finish the story in this season. So I guess I'm quite curious to see where it's going to go. This episode itself was okay. I wouldn't say it's as strong as the season, but that's because she has gotten some really strong moments in this season. So I guess we'll have to see more from that. Let's see. Beyond that, I don't have anything video game related to talk about. I did get my shiny Rayquaza, and I caught the shiny Outbreak Pokemon. I didn't need to catch the Carbink. Is that its name? Not Carbuncle, Carbink. But I already had a shiny one of those, so I didn't need to catch a shiny one from the Outbreak. But I don't think there's much else to mention there. Just Lethal Company stuff. I don't know, that's just playing Lethal Company. Dead by Daylight, yeah, sure, I've been enjoying the Dead by Daylight I've done, but I don't think it's any different. I do have on my notes, though, the Amazing Digital Circus episode 4 happened, or at least I've watched it between this video and my previous video, and it's doing pretty great. There's been at least one clip I've made for it because I haven't found good clips on YouTube of the moment. And maybe I need to have another one made for another moment. But the show, what can I say about the episode? It was a very depressing episode. And the funny thing about saying that is it was depressing, but it wasn't depressing because it was about depression. That part was also pretty strong. And I'm not sure if it was the best executed out there. Like I don't think it's Puss in Boots, The Last Wish, the way that one depicted a panic attack. That one is top tier. Holy shit. But I don't know that the depression in this one is that good, but maybe that's just me missing it, and the fact that I'd be comparing it to that says a lot about how strong that aspect is. But I think people who've worked in especially fast food industry, but maybe also adjacent ones, I wouldn't be surprised if this episode killed them a little on the inside, a little too close to home, because I've never worked that, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't ever want to work fast food. Like, one of the things I thought while watching it is that it's such a shitty adventure, because I think there is value to be found working in fast food, but not if you're just serving a bunch of NPCs. And one of the problems I would argue with fast food is it kind of disconnects the workers from the thing about it that could make the job rewarding, even if it's not glamorous. And that's, at the end of the day, you're still there. You're still helping society move along. You're helping people eat, even if it's maybe not always the most healthy food. maybe if people were just only going to McDonald's just like once a month or something like that, that treat themselves to some burgers and fries or something like that, that's still, that's something that they didn't have to buy the ingredients for, do the preparation for. And, some of that is easy to do if you're doing it for a lot of people, but if you're just doing it for one person yourself, it's kind of a little strange. And what if different people really want ridiculously different things? There's still something really great about being able to do that. And part of the problem with fast food industry in general is that I think people could feel that there if having people feel that was there. And some of that kind of, it feels like the episode itself also misses, but that's definitely a strong element there. So, for example, at the very, very end, and as the episode gets later on, it's just kind of, part of the depression of it is it's no longer using music, the gags are slowing down, it's moments of quiet that induce an existential dread to a degree where even Jax, one of the biggest assholes, who's not an outright villain, I don't know that we can call him an anti-hero though, we'll just have to see once we get a Jax episode, but just the way he acts once he gets beaten down by this is just like, yeah, I don't blame anything that happens to this character. It's just like, that's horrible. And when it's at that very end, when it's just Pomni and Gaggle, I'm hoping I'm remembering Gaggle's name correctly. I'm maybe remembering more and more names, but when it's just them and Pomni, it's dark outside, some of the lights are off in the restaurant, it's just like this empty feeling, and Pomni offers to close for Gaggle. I think that's really touching. But at the same time, a part of me thinks that the way you make an environment like that work is you work together. And this is kind of similar to how one of the better ways to help your kids develop patterns of doing housework is, since you point out and say, do the housework, especially if you're not doing them. Usually what you try and do is say, come on, let's go sweep the floors together. Let's do it. Humans react, and I'm not a psychologist, so take this with a grain of salt. Maybe I read this somewhere, and maybe I'm wrong because, I haven't had any kids to really practice it on. But this bringing together of humans, I'm not going to have you do something where even if you're thinking about it, you're like, yeah, they're doing some other chore somewhere else. It's like when you're doing things together, you can watch some pretty shitty movies and say, oh my God, what the fuck is going on with this goddamn Three Tails arc? But it's more tolerable when you're doing it together. It's even maybe kind of engaging. It's just like, yeah, let's do it together. And I can't help but feel like that feels like it would have been better. It's like, don't worry, let's close together. Although maybe Gaggle really did need that leave early thing. And, the show plays it a little bit for laughs, but serious laughs. Anyways, lots and lots of thoughts about that episode. Really great episode. I think one of the measures of what makes it great is it induces a lot of thinking, a lot of discussion, even if there are things there that weren't intentionally done and it's just something the audience is getting from it. That's actually a sign of valuable art, I would say, actually. So, for example, there's this common idea where, you'll have your English teacher having you read a story and it's like, they want you to say, all right, in this scene, why did they describe the curtains as blue? And there's a response to that that's, sometimes the curtains are just blue because that's what the author chose. But I do think that there's a step beyond that, which I think the original one where, why did the author do this, might not be correct. It's like, maybe if you're talking about what do a lot of people get out of the curtain being blue, sometimes it's like, maybe the author chose it, maybe they subliminally chose it, maybe they didn't intend it, but people find value in for some reason, this curtain was blue. And I think that's kind of good work, good art. Like, if it makes people connect in that way. And it's even better if it was not intended, because then it kind of means that the art ended up bigger than itself. And I don't know. I feel like Amazing Digital Circus Episode 4 seems to touch a little bit on that in a great way. As well as having its fantastic character designs, its fantastic animation, its expertly executed comedic timing. Really smart show. Good job, show. Love Amazing Digital Circus. Anyways, I guess I got lost into that. Probably I can wrap up my recording and check out that Discord ping you heard a billion years ago. Y'all, have a Merry Christmas.